In this chapter, we're going to take a look at the workspaces, or panels as they're known. When you first open Premiere, they're pretty intimidating, and you'll click on a button for sure that will move them around, and you try to figure out how to get them back to the way it used to look. Don't worry about all this. We're going to take you through each panel, how you can customize it, move them around, and if you make a mistake, put them back to where they were. So let's get into this.
So welcome to the interface, or panels as they call them, in Adobe. Yours might look a little bit different than this depending on the version that you have. No problem, they all work the same. You'll see up here there's a learning tab, assembly, editing. So if we don't need this, this is learning where you can get some tutorials. You can, these little three lines, you can click on them and say close panel. You can see that all these little panels that we'll be using, we'll be working with editing. We can change these panels to our layout however we want them. In editing, if you don't see that, you can go to Window, Workspace, and then you can just choose editing right here. Now the other thing we can do is if you click in a panel and then you move your cursor over until it turns into this double line, you can drag the panel to whatever size suits you. If you click on another panel, you can move this up or down, so they can be manipulated around. If you do something by double clicking and then this happens, if you don't freak out, you can just double click on this again and it'll go back to where it was. And you can change these layouts that whatever suits your needs. Now, if you change it, and let's say you did what I just did then, if I double click on this for example, and it does this in the middle of your editing, it's quite scary initially and you don't know what to do. What you can do is change them right back to default by going to Window, Workspaces, Reset to Save Layout, and then everything will go back to default. One other thing to I'll let you know is that if you click on the top here, you can move the panels around. However, if you want to change these, so now this will be down here, and then you can take this one up here and move it down here. So if you do this by accident, I pretty much work in the default. So I'd go back to Windows, Workspaces, and reset to saved, and everything goes back to normal. So no need to be too scared, get too panicked by it. You can always go back to where you were. So that's enough about panels right now. The next session we're going to start importing some media into this area here, and this will all make more sense.
In the newer version of Adobe Premiere, when you're in Workspaces, you'll end up here. On the older version, you had all the windows across the top. They've now gone. So we have import, edit, and export. So if we hit import, we go back to where we were, and we can choose any one of the files that we want to bring into the edit area. Now you can move these windows around just by hovering over any lines. You'll see this double arrow, and you can make this window bigger, or you can make this window bigger, and just customize it however you want. If you get lost, which you will, for example, you can drag this and put this down over here, and then you'll be freaking out because it looks very different. You don't know what to do. Just go up to Window, Workspace. We're in editing. It tells us that that's what we're in because that's got that little dot there, and go back to Reset to Save Layout, and then we go back to the default. So a lot of times I'll bring this window over here to make it bigger for me, because this is the preview known as the program window. Now if you want to change your workspace, so you want to go to coloring for example, you can go to Window, Workspace, and then just choose color for example, and that will change the workspace right here. But if we go back and we want to change that back to editing, we can do that. You'll also notice this little box over here now on the new system. So we're going to click on this and we can do it right here, change it to color for example. And then that takes us to the color panel where we have Lumetri color, and this is Essential Graphics, which pops up here. But now we have the color panel for when we're coloring. If we want to go and see all the tabs that we have open or chosen, we can do Show Workspace Tabs. So you click on this and you can see here that you can drag these open, and you can go to Learning, Assembly, Editing, Color, Audio, for example. So you can use this, and this is what you'll probably end up doing, is having this little bar up here to go between the different workspaces that you want to go to, such as audio, and then back to editing. And 90% of your time you're going to spend in editing. So as I said, you can actually drag this to minimize space, pull it out, but you can also edit this. So if you click on this workspace button, you can come down to edit workspace, and here what you're going to do is you have all the workspaces in your menu up here, and then see it says do not show. So if you don't want some of them, you just click on them and drag them down, and they won't show in the workspace. And if you say okay, now the ones that you've taken below won't show up in this little scroll bar up here. They'll be hidden. They're still there, they're just shown, they're just hidden below. So if you want to go to them, you can go to them manually, but again, you could go back. If you want to see them again, you would just drag them up into this area, and then they'll be up here. So if we pull this further forward, they'll be wherever you need them. So one last thing here to show you is if you're in Window and we want to work on Essential Graphics, for example, that's going to open up the Essential Graphics panel here, and that's where we can add titles and mogurts and things like this, whatever you have in your system. You can also get Adobe stock media. A lot of this is paid for. Some of it comes with your subscription. And then this is where you can edit stuff like this, but we'll get into that later on. And if you don't want that there, you can just click on these three lines and do Close Panel. And then we can always bring that back up again by doing Window, Essential Graphics, or Essential Sound, for example. And this will bring up the essential sound files to do some editing. We'll be looking at this stuff later on. So let's move on and figure out how we can put some media into the workspaces next.